to help us. It's wonderful to see all of you. How many? I can see about half of the people, and then the rest I see a black box, which is fine. I want to have a sense of how many of you were here last week. Can you raise your hand if you were here last week? How much review I would need to do? Okay, great. Thank you. I'll just do a quick review of what we did last week, and I'm just so happy to see everyone here today. I hope for those of you who were here last week, our class gave you things that you thought about during the week and maybe even shared with someone. So last week we were talking about the soul and the relationship of the soul to the body. And we had some metaphors that we looked at. Is someone who was here last week want to share maybe one of the metaphors that spoke to them or something that they've been thinking about since last week, especially with regard to the metaphors that I shared? And if you weren't here last week and you'd like to get the material from last week, you can let us know and we can send it to you. So yes, I see Irene would like to get the material. That's awesome. Happy to send that to you. Okay, I don't want to put anyone on the spot too much, but I'm gonna, let's see, I can show you a picture of some of the things we had last week. So we had one metaphor for sort of where our soul is in relationship to the divine, in relationship to God, is that God is like sort of a pilot light and lights every single one of our candles. Our candles, like the body is the wax, and then the flame is our soul, and that we have whatever days that we're blessed to walk the earth, we have to share our light with whoever we encounter, wherever we go. We get to share the light of our soul. And then just as a soul, a light can return to the pilot, but if it has lit many other candles while it was here, those lights stay lit. So we have the opportunity to share light that remains after we leave. The second picture is a lot of different rental car companies. Because one way I like to think about the soul and the body is that our soul is sort of dropped in from, some airplane beyond, and we rent this car, which is our body, and it gets us around. It helps us to do our work in this world. You get what you get. Some people have a really fancy, car. Some people just, the car is kind of barely moving along, but you use what you have to do what you can in this physical world. We talked about, the soul being like a lamp plugged into this divine electric current. So, we're always plugged into it, but we have to decide if we're going to turn on our individual lamp and if we're going to help one another to turn on individual lamps. And we talked about when you're in a very dark room, just turning on one lamp or lighting one candle makes a huge difference. So when times are particularly dark, our souls can shine particularly bright. If you're in a bright room and you light a candle, it doesn't make the biggest difference. If you're with someone who's in a very dark place and you're able to connect on a soulful level with them, it's huge, it's tremendous. So that we are each just an individual lamp, but there's this divine light and electric current and breath running through us, but we have to allow it to run through. It's there, but are we admitting it? I see as someone is waiting to be admitted to the room. Are we allowing that current, that electricity, that light to run through us? Same with we talked about each of us is like one wave in the ocean. We have an individual existence, but ultimately we are poured back into something greater. We talked about, I'm not going to go through everything, but we talked about the neshama, the soul, as being connected to every other soul, through these like invisible lines of connection. And the soul is what is breathed into us. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, we're told that every human being that ever exists is created from the dust of the earth and the breath of God. So we're not breathing, we are being breathed. We are always being breathed by this divine presence that is running through us. Our breath is what gives us our aliveness. And that's what we're told in the second chapter of the Torah, that our bodies are the hardware from which we are downloading and live streaming. We're downloading like from the cloud. This is sort of a tech metaphor. We're always downloading. We are the hardware. We're downloading these messages from beyond, and then we're live streaming them. When we can share God's presence and God's light in the world, it's like we're live streaming what we are downloading from somewhere beyond into the hardware of our physicality. And being in a physical body, there's sometimes these like veils where it's hard to tell why we're here and where is the divine. But part of the process of being in this material world is to peel away those veils, the darkness, the schmutz that gets on our beautiful soul, so we can't feel why we're here and that we're a part of something so much bigger. And then we ended with the 2 prayers that are said first thing in the morning. One prayer is Modeh ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam she'chazarta bi nishmati b'chamla rabba emunatacha, which is we're grateful. We start with grateful. Am I? Notice I comes after grateful. We don't think about ourselves first thing when we wake up. We think about just grateful. Grateful that I am here and that you've returned my soul to me. We say you've returned my soul to me. So that implies, where did the soul go? Why wasn't it with me? And there's this idea that while we're sleeping, our soul is renewed and it kind of travels and it has a little powwow with God, with the divine presence, where we learn more about why we're here, what we're meant to do. And then it returns into our body the next day. And we forget a lot of it, but we have like just little insights that if we can be really mindful when we wake up in the morning and think and understand that our dreams are, according to the Talmud, 1/60th a message from God. There are 59 parts, just kind of chaos that is in the material world that we're a part of. But one piece of 60 is this really strong message that the divine presence wants us to hear. And we're meant to disentangle all those parts and try to figure out, what's the emotion that I'm waking up with and why am I feeling that? What does God want from me? And the second prayer that we say in the morning, Elohai neshama shenatata bi tahorahi, that God has placed a pure soul in me and that God breathes it into me, God formed it, and that one day it will return to God. But for every day that that divine breath is blown through our lungs and that we are being breathed by something bigger, we will be grateful and we'll be aware that it's not always going to be with us. So these are just 2 of the first prayers that we really say before we even get out of bed. Like if you go to synagogue, they're not even necessarily saying these prayers because the assumption is that you've already said them. It's like our very first awakening in the morning is, oh, thank you for returning my soul. The soul you've given me is pure. We are all pure, beautiful beings of light. And any darkness, any cruelty, any lack of empathy or kindness is schmutz that has accrued on our soul and needs to be removed. And that's our job every day, is to say, what is preventing me from experiencing, from feeling that pure soul that I know I've been given. It's my birthright. Everyone has been given this pure soul. So those are just 2 of the prayers in the morning. And now we're going to move into today's class. So I'm going to ask if you can put up the sheet from page 1 today. Marina, if you can do that. Madalena, I really appreciate that. Great. Thank you. So this is class 2 of Where Do We Go From Here? And you can see I have a picture of, I just want to try to see you all better. Okay. Well, I can see, let's see everyone, but let's see. Okay. I can see enough people, but if you put something in the chat, oh, I see the chat now too. Let me put that to the side and I can see it. Okay. It says, you can rename your name by tapping the 3 dots on the upper right of your square. Okay. Someone wants to rename themselves. Great. So this is a picture of 2 babies in the womb, and it says, twins in the womb have a conversation about the possibility of life after birth, right? Can you imagine life after birth? And this is something that's it's been taken and kind of interpreted by a lot of, psychologists, like new age kind of gurus on the internet, but it comes from Rabbi Yechiel Tusansky, who was born in the 19th century and lived until 1955. And it's from a book called Sefer Gesher HaChayim, which means the book of the bridge of life. And it's a whole book about the bridge between this world and the next. So if we look, I so wish we were all in person. Let's imagine we're all in person. It's so much nicer to be able to look into one another's eyes and see how we're each reacting to this. So please feel free at any point, if you want to ask a question, to put it in the chat, or just say, can you call on me? And then I will call on you. But in the meantime, we'll all try to stay muted so that everyone can hear. Okay. So it starts out. Imagine twin brothers in their mother's womb, floating around in the dark, watery, uterine environment. Their food and oxygen are sent directly into their bodies by way of the umbilical cord. Now, imagine that the two brothers possessed different world outlooks. One believed in a future beyond the womb. The other only accepted that which only that which he could see with his five senses. Now, let's imagine we had the ability to listen in on one of their conversations. Okay, so imagine one asking the other, tell me, do you believe in life after birth? Asked one of the twins. Let's move down the page a little bit. Thank you. Yes, in here we're growing and gaining strength for all that waits for us on the outside, answers the other. You really believe in that? Says the first one. How's that supposed to look? Says the second. I don't know exactly myself, but it will certainly be brighter out there than in here. Maybe, who knows, maybe we'll use our mouths for eating, our legs for running, but he's quickly interrupted by his twin. I've never heard of such nonsense. Eating with your mouth? What a crazy idea. That's what we have an umbilical cord for, to feed us. And you want to run around? It would never work. The umbilical cord is much too short. Oh, I think it could work. It will. It will all just be a little different. What are you talking about? No one has ever come back from the afterbirth. Life ends with birth, and that's it. Period. True. We don't know what life looks like after birth, but somehow I just feel... Next thing I know, you're going to tell me you believe in Mother. If she's real, where is she now? Well, I don't know for sure, but when I'm thoughtful and quiet, sometimes I think I hear her. It's like she's all around us. Maybe we're a part of her, or she's a part of us. Respectfully, I must disagree. If we can't see her, or hear her, or touch her, she isn't real. I don't know all the answers, brother, but I really do believe there's something beyond this. If you don't believe in anything beyond here, what do you think is can you move the page up, is in store for us after this? It's sad, but obvious. We're separated from the cord. We'll fall back into the dark abyss. We might as well never have existed. Before the other brother can reply, there's a massive shakeup in the womb, and the believing twin is torn away. The remaining baby is left alone and terrified. Upon hearing the ear-piercing cries of his departed twin, he's sure that something catastrophic must have occurred, and he'll never see or hear from his beloved brother again. However, at that very moment, an overjoyed group of people have gathered, each one calling out lovingly, "Welcome to the world, little one. We've been waiting a lifetime to meet you and your brother." So you all get the metaphor, I'm sure. Does anyone have a response to this, or something that it evoked for them?
It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Irene. Appreciate that. It is. It's like, it just really makes you think, like, I mean, yeah, well, all you know is what you know. And if you're in the womb, you know it's dark and wet, and you hear some rumbling sounds, and you've got this cord that seems really important, and you got, maybe you have eyes and ears and a nose, but they don't seem to be good for anything. They're not. And in the metaphor, the umbilical cord is like our bodies. Like we think we need them in order to exist, but might it be possible? Might it be possible that one day we could shed them and we have a whole different mode of what it means to be alive? We don't need what we think we need. Okay. Well, it looks like we have a lot more people than last week, so I'll take that as a compliment. It's kind of nice to see all of you. Okay, is there anyone else who has a thought about that, who wants to say something? Okay, well, we
There's a
can.
really interesting comment in the chat you might want to look at.
Okay. How do they know no one else has ever returned from the afterbirth? After all, they only know themselves. Okay, good point. Good point. I think that I think what they're saying is no one has come to where they are. No one has ever entered to the womb and said, "You won't believe what's out there." But fortunately, in some ways, we live in a world where people have come back because there are millions of recorded near-death experiences and I'm kind of obsessed with reading about my passion is the intersection of science and spirituality. So I read all of these books, and some are by psychologists, some are by scientists, some are they're neuroscience, engineers, doctors, all kinds of people who were once not believers, but either themselves or someone they know or people they research had these experiences where they left their physical bodies, and it's like every single one that gets reported experienced the same kind of thing. And it's very similar to what our ancient texts have to say. Back when I was in rabbinical school 25 years ago, I wrote a paper, and I mean, it's just only expanded since then, but 25 years ago, I wrote a paper looking at Elizabeth Kubler Ross, who you've probably heard of, who's a sort of expert in death and dying, was with thousands of people at their deaths, which she said happens to us based on her experiences with people and what Judaism says happens to us when we leave our body. And it was just like word for word, almost the same. And as time has gone on, the research has only expanded greater and greater. So in some ways, it's almost like we have a third twin in the womb, or someone who's come back and said, "You won't believe it. I was actually out there. And what's going to happen is we're going to go through this dark tunnel, and all of a sudden, the world is completely different than everything we've ever known. And here I want to tell you about it." And there could be those in the womb, the one in the womb might say, "I don't believe you. You're saying you were there and that happened, but oh, maybe you're just trying to get popularity with us, or you're making this up. Maybe you were having a psychedelic experience or something." But I mean, the fact that this is seen, and we're going to look more specifically at some of the near-death experience literature. But the fact that it's seen throughout time and space, you can go back 2,000 years ago and hear people, there's records of people talking about their near-death experiences. You can go to little children who couldn't possibly have a sense of what these entail because they've never read about it, they've never heard about it. And you can go to people cross-culturally of all different religions, and they all report very similar ideas of what happens when the soul and the body separate. But for right now, let's go back to, I think, go back to the sheet for a second. I don't see it on the screen right now. Is it there and I'm just not seeing it because I'm looking at a different view? There we go. Thank you, Madalena. Okay, so the word for a embryo in the womb in Hebrew is ubar. Okay, ubar comes from the same Hebrew root. Last week we talked a lot about Hebrew roots of ayin bet resh, which means to cross over. Okay, so the word for an embryo is a one who crosses over. It's also the root of the word ivrit, Hebrew, ayin bet resh, to cross over. So there's this idea just embedded in, our language, our peoplehood, our what we say for one who is. We also say someone passed on. This idea of passing it's like we're only here for a short while. We're passing. There's a story about a great rabbi and his student, and the great rabbi lives in Poland, and his student comes from America to visit him, and he notices that his room is so barren. There's like nothing in the room. There's just like one chair and a pillow and a blanket. And he says to the great master rabbi, like, it's so good to see you. I have so many questions for you about Torah and spirituality, but first I just want to ask you, where's all your stuff? And the rabbi looks at him and says, it's okay, that you asked me that. I'm just curious, where's all your stuff? And the traveler says, well, I'm just passing through. And of course, the rabbi says, so am I. We don't need all of our stuff. We're all passing through in a way. And we think that all of our stuff is somehow an important part of the journey. And it's, important in some ways, like you need the rental car to get you through this physical world. And there are certain things we all need to be comfortable in this physical world. But to remember always that, I like to say there's never a U-Haul behind a hearse. You can't take it with you. And what we have is really our experiences, the relationships that we have with others. What's left? We're all going to cross over. We have crossed over from somewhere, and we will cross over to somewhere. And that's inherent just in the word for what it means to be an infant, what it means to be a Jewish person, and what it means to be at the end of our lives. We are all Ivri, crossing over. So, okay, then this comes from Pirkei Avot, from the Talmud. The world is like a waiting room before the world to come. You should work on yourself in the waiting room so that you can enter the banquet hall. So this, what I was trying to do is show you different sources in Jewish texts that say exactly the same kind of things that we have all of these current scientists. Right now, like the most popular podcast, I think, or at least one of the top 3, is called the Telepathy Tapes. And it's all about for the most part, kids who don't have speech. They're on the autism spectrum, or they've had traumatic brain injuries and whatnot, and how they really have proven, like beyond a shadow of a doubt, that they have telepathy with one another, with their parents, cross country, cross oceans. If you haven't, listened to it or watched it, it's fascinating, and there are many sort of spin-off podcasts and experiments based on it. And they all just seem to show that our consciousness exists somewhere outside of our body, that our brain is taking in and kind of like siphoning, like experiencing only a small piece of what our consciousness or our soul knows to be true. I was reading a book yesterday about a woman who is blind, and she had a near-death experience. And when she came back, she was able to describe everything about, she's been blind since birth, everything about how she looks. But not just the way that a person would look when they looked in the mirror. She could describe a 360 of everything around her. So what was behind her, what was, below, above, just 360. And she thought, when she described it all, she assumed that's what vision is like for all of us, that we can all see above, we're all kind of looking down from above, and we have 360 vision. And when the scientist told her, no, that's not the way we experience sight. We only experience it sort of through these portals on the front of our face. And she sort of thought that was funny. Like, what do you mean? How's that possible? It's not sight. So, and you can look at what dogs or various other kinds of animals, what they can see, what they can smell. They have like a much wider array of senses than we know to be possible. And we don't say like, no, that's not possible. We understand that I think bees can see infrared and snakes can see ultraviolet, like colors that we can't see. All kinds of things that our brain filters out only what we really need for our physical existence. So, animals that need to be able to see different in darkness, or to be able to experience things that we don't necessarily need to stay alive. Our brain doesn't experience it all. but it's out there, it's possible. It just, our brain is filtering out because we can't experience everything while we're in these physical bodies. So if you have, okay, so I'm looking to see what people are writing in the chat, because since I can't, when I'm teaching, I love to have, like, say, what, do we have any questions? Let's see, what do you think? And look at people and have you talk and be expressive. But since I'm here on this screen, it's kind of like this, it feels like a little barrier. But someone wrote, "Oi, the word banquet hall has such a different connotation in our world today, that gilded ballroom." Oh, that's funny. It didn't even occur to me. I wrote this long before Trump's big, beautiful ballroom became a thing. But yeah, so, but just to go back, that they're essentially, and that's what the Talmud, that I didn't write this, it's in the Talmud, the words of the rabbis in the Talmud, that was written about the year, probably that piece was written about the year 150 CE. So we're talking, more than 2,000 years ago. So they didn't know from the big, beautiful banquet hall either. But this idea that we're in one world, but it's not the main event. There's something bigger beyond, but that in this world that we're in, we're doing some kind of preparation work for what will be next. So what is, and people call this world that we're in, you could call it the hallway or the antechamber, but also it's often called Earth School. Like, we're here to learn certain things that you can only learn in a material body, and to be given various sort of tests and to overcome challenges of the material world to learn things. And then we enter what is next, and we're almost, if you go back to the sheet for a minute, unless anyone wanted to say anything. Let's go back to the source. Thank you. So, are we evaluated or judged when we leave this world? Who judges us and how? Okay, so sometimes in other religions, there's like this sense that this judgment is painful and scary, and either, and it's definitely, at least in other religions, it seems that it's being done by this like external source, almost like a high school principal who's like walking around with their arms folded and like, kind of doesn't know your name, but is very disappointed in everything you've ever done. That kind of idea of just like, I don't know what you were up to, but it's not any good. This presence. But in Judaism, our sense of what happens, that sort of judgment, isn't really, it's more of an evaluation that we do of our own lives. Okay. And this is in Jewish texts. And it's also strikingly similar to what the millions of near-death experience participants or experiencers have shared, which is that we leave our bodies, and you can go to the next page. There's like this. So this is shown in the Jewish text as well as in all of these near-death experiences. There's a detachment from the body. Frequently, there's a sense that you can still see the body. And there are all kinds of fascinating stories of people who will share, when I left my body, I was on the roof of the hospital. I was like going up, and I saw there was a blue shoe on the roof. And it was so odd, because why would there be a shoe on the roof? And then they go through a whole series of things when they leave their body, but ultimately everyone who's been able to share a near-death experience has come back into their body. So they'll share with like a nurse or doctor, it's so strange that there's a blue shoe on the roof of the hospital. And then these kinds of stories will be corroborated. Someone will get up there, on a crane and look, and how would that woman have known that? She wouldn't have known that. And these, they're proven again and again in many different ways. And maybe next week I can give you a list of podcasts and books and things that will help you if you want to do a deeper dive into what I'm talking about. But what I find fascinating is that they all have sort of corollaries in the Jewish tradition of this idea that our body, our soul sort of separates from our body. There's even an idea within, like at the Shiva house, why don't you want to have mirrors? What's the reason not to have mirrors? Some people think it's just because you shouldn't focus on like your beauty and how you look. But the reason given in the Talmud is that our soul is still hovering in those days immediately. It hasn't completely made its transition to what's beyond. So for the soul to walk through the Shiva house, or to float through whatever it's doing, to be in the Shiva house, pass by a mirror and not see its incarnated body would be very shocking because it still feels very much a part of this world. And it's almost like throwing it in the soul's face, you're not with us anymore. You're not physical like all of us. And it could frighten their soul because their soul is like just right there. And it's not a kind or respectful thing to do to have mirrors where and it's also helpful for us to know that we are more than our physical appearance, that there will come a day where we are still here, but not physically. So those are two reasons that are given in the Talmud for why we cover the mirrors. I think, maybe in the 20th century, people became less comfortable with this idea of souls, disembodied souls, and inside is like ghosts or things that are haunting us. And so they started to find more practical reasons for some of the Jewish laws and just said, oh, you don't want to look in the mirror because it doesn't matter what you look like. That's a small piece of it, but really we talk about disembodied souls being terrified if they were to pass by a mirror. Okay. Okay, so someone just said that they got here late and they wanted to see documents in the chat, but there haven't been any documents in the chat today, just what's been on the screen. I'm guessing you want to see the pages from before. We can send that afterwards.
I sent
You did?
I copied and no, I didn't. I copied and sent the comments that were in the chat.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was
Okay.
at least something we could do that I could do.
I think that I think Madalena could probably she could probably send a copy of the text from today, pages 1, 2, and 3, if you want, to the person. Who was it? Julie?
Sure. I'll include it on the recordings page.
Okay. Awesome.
On our website, we have the ALI archives where we have all the recordings. So I will add the sheets that we're showing on the screen.
Okay. Awesome. So the thing that you missed, JL, is that this metaphor essentially about being like in the womb. We're like twins in a womb, where like one person thinks there's something beyond the womb and one person says, no, the womb is all there is. When we're in this physical world, this is a Jewish story. It's like we're in the womb, and you have people saying, I think there's something beyond, and people saying, no, this is all there is. And so Judaism does believe there is a place beyond this one. And then we're looking at all the different corollaries between what Judaism says and what the science that's really just being uncovered and shared now. It has been going on for 2,000 years. People have been talking about near-death experiences, but it's become in vogue lately, I'd say in the last 5 years even, to like really talk about it and to see the seriousness of it as like a truth, the capital T, that this is something that's going on. And doctors, scientists, researchers are all starting to embrace it. So we can go to the next page now, because I'm looking at all the different things, yes, that are seen both in Judaism and in these near-death experiences and in other religions, essentially. So there's definitely this idea in every sort of near-death experience that's reported that when we're leaving our body, there's this sort of dark tunnel. And there's also this incredibly like blinding light, this beautiful light that's like bathes you in a warmth and a presence that's like brighter and more beautiful and comforting and loving than anything you've ever experienced in your physical body. To me, this looks like the birth canal, right? I mean, there's definitely a similarity. So I think that from what we do know without, shadow of a doubt, we know what, sort of the birth canal is like and the way we leave it and exit it, and that there is something brighter and completely different on the other side where you don't need some of the things that you needed in the womb. There's reason to believe that it's also true from when we leave our bodies. Okay. The next thing that's said in both the Jewish tradition and these near-death experiences is that there's a life review, a panoramic recall of one's life and our impact on others. Okay, so it's not just that we're remembering every incident of our life, like looking through a photo album real fast. There are a lot of different metaphors that are given, whether it's a panoramic image or whether it's screens. It depends sort of like what century we're hearing people talk about what the experience was like, because a lot of people from the past century, the last, 50, 70 years have said it's like a television, and you're just like seeing these images of every moment of your life. But what you're doing is you're not just seeing it, you're feeling it. You're not just feeling what you did and what you said, but the way that you made the people around you feel. So it's like every word, every gesture, you're seeing what you did. And again, you're also seeing its impact, and you're seeing the ripple effect of it. So you're seeing the way that the people around you felt and then how it impacted them. So sometimes in these moments, what you think were really important moments in your life, maybe you got a advanced degree in some subject, or you were able to, you bought a beautiful house or whatnot, like means nothing when you're looking at it from this perspective. But the time that you smiled at a cashier and really said, thank you, I appreciate you, that set off a whole thing in their life that you had no idea about. And that maybe your whole purpose of being was to give that smile in that moment, that there was some reason you were put there. In Hebrew, the word for angel is malach, which also means a messenger. And there's an idea that we are all put here with a lot of messages to give to a lot of people. And some of them we know well, some of them we barely know at all, some of them will never know their name. But our presence here in the material world made a huge difference to them in some way, shape, or form. And that's the kind of moments that we're really going to be looking at in the life review. And the moments where we really messed up, the moments where the people around us felt disappointed by us, or frustrated, or lost, or angry because of something we said, did, or didn't do or say. But what's really important to note is that it's not that there's some external judge who's saying, you horrible person, there's lashes for you, or you're going to be burned in flames there. It's that our own conscience experiences this and feels like this pang of like, wow, what I could have done versus what I did. And that sits with us. And that it's a lesson. It's something that we learn, and it's very painful. So it's not that hell or heaven are imposed on us from somewhere external to us, but we experience them based on the way that we have behaved in earth school. So we're typically, what the Talmud says and what these near-death experiences say, is there's these like warm, loving beings of light that are with us when we're looking at the life review. And that they don't make us feel guilty or ashamed. It comes from this internal sense. They're just there like sort of to delight with us, to like accompany us, to be with us, not to make us feel any way external from how we feel. And in those moments, as we're watching it, we realize the purpose of our soul in this lifetime, and we realize the ways we've fallen short, and that prepares us for our next agala, or incarnation, that we do believe the soul returns. And obviously there's a lot there to unpack, but that when we see the ways that we've fallen short, we see the things that we could have done that we didn't, or the ways that we made people feel that we just, we could have done better. It just tells our soul, this is what you need to do the next time around. In fact, there's a late 19th century rabbi who says we're shown like two, like he almost says it's a film, but it's essentially we're shown two films of our lives, two series of pictures that go really fast. And the first series, I don't think I put this on the sheet, but I'm just going to describe it to you. The first series of pictures is our life exactly as we lived it. So we see every moment, we feel every feeling. Like I said before, the feelings we had, the feelings the people around us had, it's all there. And then it kind of just goes dark, and you get to think about, what you just saw. And then another film begins. And this is every moment of your life as you could have lived it, given the circumstances of your art school experience, given what you went through in this world. This is like the height of what you could have done and experienced. And for some people, those two films are really similar. And you're looking at the second film and you're like, yep, I remember that. Yes, wow. And for some people, it's like, who was that? in the second film. Like, whose life was that? Because it doesn't look anything like the life that I lived. And what the rabbi says is that for some people, you know, when the films don't match up at all, it's like you've experienced, you're in hell in that moment. That's what hell is to Jews, is when those two movies are so different and you realize you squandered the moments and the relationships and the potential. And heaven is when you feel a sense of like, huh, like I did a lot. But just because you've been in hell doesn't mean that you can't utilize that to return and have a better incarnation. So I see some people kind of nodding, smiling. Sheila, it's so nice to see your big smile. I feel like you're right here with me. Yeah.
Oh,
So
thank you,
question.
Rabbi. I'm so taken with everything you're saying. Back to the original story, it's,
Yeah.
archetypally, it reminds me of Plato's allegory of the cave, that we're in this darkness. But what I find so interesting about the parable is that even in the womb, it's about a physical being, and we come into a physical being, but that when we return, read years ago, and I'm not going to do it justice, but Rabbi Jonathan Sachs was during a Yom Kippur, one of those side readings you can get distracted by, right? And he was like, and I work with clients with Alzheimer's and dementia, so it's very personal to me, but perhaps it's the rightful thing that our memories go, because we're turning to a place that we don't remember, and even that we can't take with us. And it was so interesting, yeah. So
So
thank
much.
you.
Yes, there's
It's
so
lovely
much.
to meet you. It's lovely to meet you.
Thank you. You as well. There's so much in the tradition about remembering and forgetting. And there's another story that probably a lot of you are familiar with, about a different story of what goes on when we're in the womb. And this is just every baby that's in the womb. And this is also in the Talmud. It's been made into many a children's book, that while we're there for the 9 months, there's an angel that's teaching us everything that we need to know, all the paths that our lives could take, because it's like there are many different paths and any human being could choose in their life.
Isn't that what Carl Jung would call the collective unconscious? That, we come out with everything we know, and then the archaeology of our lives is unearthing it. Is it similar?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, when I talk about scientists, sociologists, psychologists, like we all are saying this, religious people, we're all saying something very similar. And that to me speaks to the truth in it, that like from so many different regions and from so many different what am I looking for? This idea, like different areas of skill sets, that they all come. Did you have a thought on that, Sheila? What's the word I'm thinking of? Yeah, just different ideas.
I mean, it's all, I think it goes back to in the most simple yet profound way of, we think we're so different, but we're not. And like, if we could just grasp that concept, like what you said early on when you said, you're in the rental car, and my thought was, wow, wouldn't that be interesting? We just realized we're just renting everything here,
Kind of true.
Yeah.
So
Thank
this
you.
idea, though, is that while we're in the womb, and this is throughout a lot of Jewish texts, and is that we're taught everything that will happen to us in our life, but in all the choices, it's like we're given the choose your own adventure, but we're given each path. We get to see all of it unfold. Like almost like, those old fans, like the fan that you open up and it like our lives kind of spread around us like a fan. And in the end, we just choose one, but we can sense all the other ones. Our
I
soul
don't
is.
know if you're old enough to remember. Do you remember the cutie things that you go boop, boop,
Oh
boop,
yeah.
boop,
Oh yeah, of
boop, maybe
course.
and then you pick the next one, and you pick, and who knows
Exactly.
what
So it's
the
like
last, yeah.
that, or yeah, that was my whole childhood, was making those things. But also like the choose your own adventure books. So in the womb, we see it all. And this does explain a little bit about why we have deja vu too, where you're just in like a simple moment in your life. It's not usually something major. You're just, standing in line somewhere and you go, oh, I've been here. This is so real. Like this exact thing, that exact piece of, and I've seen that color, that shape, that person. I've heard those words. And then it just flees. It's just you have it for a moment like a dream, and then it's gone. But that if we have seen it all before, then that's why sometimes things just say, jump out at us. The midrash. So in the Talmud, it says that the angel then taps us right here. You have that little indentation right here beneath your nose above your lip, and that that's where we get a little tap. And when we come out, we forget everything. But life, as you said, Rabbi Sachs says, is a process of remembering what we're here for. It's not just creating it from scratch, but remembering what our soul's purpose was in the world. And then if you go back to the end of life, what we're doing is evaluating sort of how well it's almost like in school where you get a pre-test and then you learn and then you get a post-test. They say this is what you're going to learn, but it was as if then you completely forgot the pre-test. It's thrown, into the incinerator, and then you have to like learn it as if you never saw it before. And then afterwards, you're evaluated based on like how many of purely based on how much kindness. The word in Hebrew for Gilgul, which is our incarnation, and the word for chesed, which is kindness, have the same gematria. Gematria is this idea that every Hebrew word has a number associated with it. So like Aleph is 1 and Bet is 2. So the incarnation has the same Hebrew gematria as chesed, kindness. So there's the idea that what we're here for, every incarnation, is to see like how much kindness, how much love, how much compassion are you capable of in any given lifetime? Because as we learned from last week's Torah portion, Breshit, what was first in the world? What came before God made anything? As I was talking to my Aunt Irene about a couple of days ago, what was there before anything is darkness and chaos. Tohu vavohu. It just says, Breshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, v'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu v'choshech. In the beginning, when God started to create, what was there? What was the material, the raw material? Darkness and chaos. And then it says that God created light. It's not the light of the sun, because that's created on the fourth day, but it's the light of the human spirit. And that light is put into every human being. It's like with that, when I talked about the breath, chapter 2, verse 7, when God breathes the breath of life, it's this light force. It's this light life force. And what is it here for? To be the antidote to the darkness and chaos. So that's the purpose of what we're here. We're here to be an antidote to this earthly realm. It says when God created heaven and earth, here's what earth was like. It doesn't tell us what heaven was like. It tells us earth was chaos and darkness. And then God created light, said, let there be light. And the light was good, and it was the antidote to the darkness. And if you just read the story like quickly, you think it's talking about the sun, but it's not, because that's created on the fourth day. So it's talking about the light of our soul. We're here to be the antidote. Irene.
What I said was tohu vavohu. I was talking about the best translation of it that I ever saw, because it rhymes, tohu vavohu, and vohu doesn't mean anything. It's a nonsense word. So the best translation is chaos and shmeas. But what I get from that is that the language of the Torah is meant to be a little folksy. Not all the time, but certainly in this example, and that maybe we should play around with it, which we certainly do, and that maybe we shouldn't take it quite so literally.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of a funny saying, because it's tohu vavohu. What's vohu? What tohu is chaos. Vohu is just like a rhyme with chaos. It's like chaos is shmez. And then choshech, though, is darkness. So what's our purpose here? Again, so we're here to be this antidote, to be chesed machines, kindness, love. How much can we do that? Sylvia put a nice picture in her of someone sort of playing violin. I don't know. It looks like someone is using music to bring light into the world. And when you talk about all of the people, again, who've had these near-death experiences, they talk about music and nature just being like beyond what you could possibly imagine in this world. There is music, there is color, but it's like of such a different caliber and quality that it's impossible to describe with words. Okay, so someone else wrote in the chat. I want to look up back in the chat. I see, love that connection, also love the deeper meaning, though it's a difficult world to express one's inner kindness and light. Okay. Yep. I mean, there's always, like I said in the beginning, I think the darker the place, the more important our tiny little light, right? Turn off all the lights in your room, close the windows, light a candle, and it's going to make a difference. If we're already living in a bright, beautiful reality and we light a candle, it's hard to even see it. So if you feel like the time in which we're living is a particularly dark time, then all the more so it's important to keep lighting your candle and keep relighting it and keep lighting other people's candles and just go around being a lamplighter essentially, because that's all we can do. You know, again, we can curse the darkness. I think Eleanor Roosevelt said, you know, you can curse the darkness or you can light a candle. So I think that we're all, you know, all of us do a lot of cursing the darkness. You turn on the news and it's, you know, it's hard to feel a lot of joy and light. And yet, as these beings of light and breath in the world that are powered by something so much bigger than us, you know, imagine we are plugged into this like electrical force that's bigger than any lamp that you can imagine. And it's always wanting to run through us. And we get to decide if we're going to flip that switch every day. And it's hard. It's hard to overcome the sluggishness and despair that is around us and that is always threatening to bring us down. But that's why we need God. That's why we need something bigger than ourselves to say, Modeh ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shechazarta bi nishmati, bechemla rabba emunatacha, which means I'm so grateful that you kindly blew that gentle whisper of a soul of light into me this day so that I can go out there and make a difference. Even if it's something so small, you just don't know if that tiny, you know, smile that you gave to someone, the tip you offered, you know, just being some very small thing. I don't know if anyone has an example of something that happened to them recently that where someone did something that was probably so small for that person, but for you, it meant a lot. I mean, I can probably all think of moments like that. You know, where there's someone just, you know, you don't even know their name. They're not a major player in the book of your life, but they are. They just don't have a name. And that's a lot in the Torah. In the Torah, there are a lot of people who are not given a name. They're just called like Ish, like a man or a human. And yet they change the course of history. You know, the person who told Joseph where his brothers were, he's just called an Ish. But if Joseph hadn't found his brothers that day, the whole story of him going down to Egypt and then becoming second to Pharaoh in Egypt and then being able to save his whole family from famine and then our whole people being in Egypt and then needing to be redeemed from Egypt, it was all spurred by one person who gave him directions. There's so many moments like that. You know, when Jacob wrestles with a man all night before he crosses the river and becomes named Yisrael, he's wrestling with an unnamed person. And yet that wrestling match becomes the basis of us being called Yisrael. Someone, we struggle, we wrestle. And that's what Yisrael means, to wrestle with divine beings. So let's go back to the sheet. We have, let's see, about 5 more minutes officially in our class for today. So let's go down a little further. So the tunnel, the life review. Okay, so that's just a picture that I thought, this is the idea. Okay, so both in the Jewish text and in the world of NDEs, you examine your whole life from birth to death. You experience your life from everyone's perspective, empathize with others you both helped and hurt. Empathize is a good word. Evaluate yourself on how well you lived and loved, enlighten yourself about what really matters, and then prepare your soul for its next go around. So that's sort of what this, and you can think about it every given day. Like if today was the last day of my life, what would today look like in my life review? How would the people around me say I made them feel? How do I think they feel? What might I do differently tomorrow? You know, and if I'm feeling hurt, what can I do to help those people see in this lifetime what they're doing so that they don't have to wait and experience this like huge pain of regret or remorse? And it's possible that some people, you know, we can have a whole other class on how do you talk to people when they've upset or disappointed you. You know, there's a lot of Jewish guidance on that too. But just thinking about like almost at the end of every day, doing like a mini life review. And being kind and compassionate with yourself, seeing it through the eyes of this loving being that just wants you to evolve into the best version of yourself. So that then you can evolve, the people around you will start to become the best versions of themselves. and that the world will just become a little bit better. We evolve ourselves so we can evolve the world in which we find ourselves in, the material world, and with all of its challenges. The idea is if we evolve ourselves, and we can only control our own behavior, we can't control what's going on around us. But there's a sense if we all become the highest, kindest version of ourselves, that does have a ripple effect. Okay, let's go down and look a little further. Okay, so another piece that we find is mystical elements, sense of unity with the universe and all beings. And to me, this is Shema Yisrael. Shema, we cover our eyes when we say Shema Yisrael, because with our eyes, we see separation. We see, this is where I end and this is where you begin. And this idea that the Shema is just saying there's one God as opposed to 2 or 3 or 4 is really not the deepest understanding of what the Shema is all about. And if you look at any of the mystical sources, or even many of the Pshat sources, the sources that are just saying, what is a Shema all about? They say it's about understanding the interconnectedness and oneness of all of us with God, that God is intertwined with all of us. We're like a pitcher of ice, where God is the water and we are the blocks of ice, and we're made of God, we return to God, we come from God, but we're just temporarily in this physical state. You can have ice, and then you can have water, and then you can have water vapor, and it's all the same atoms, are just in different states. We're all part of one another, and what I do affects you, affects you, affects you. That, like, another image is that we're all part of the same body, and some of us are like a piece of a finger, and some of us are a piece of a elbow or a knee or a hair, and you doing something to one part affects the whole thing. You can't cut off a finger and expect that the other fingers or the other hand won't feel pain. And that's how we're all interconnected. We're all part of this greater oneness that is very much affected by what every single being does. So there's a picture beneath this of this. If you go down a little bit. So this is just the idea. So someone with their eyes covered saying the Shema, and it's just showing this sort of like interconnectedness of everything and everyone in this picture. Let's actually, you can stop there for a second. I don't know if this picture really demonstrates exactly what I'm trying to say here. I'll try to find an even better picture, but that, like, we only see like that we're this little speck of green in the mem of the Shema, but really we're part of something so much bigger. We're this magnificent design that is all intertwined and infused with divinity. And we can only experience it if we cover our eyes and just kind of listen softly, like the baby in the womb that says, when I'm very quiet, I feel like I hear mother. I feel something that's bigger than me. I feel a part of something, and I don't know, it's all around us. It's within, we're part of it. Okay, let's go down a little bit more. So the next thing is reunion with loved ones. That's a thing that is found in both the Torah. Whenever it says someone died in the Torah, it says they went to be with their fathers. They'd be with the mothers. It doesn't just say like they died. It typically says they went to lie with the ancestors. I just love this little thing. When you arrive in heaven and God says, like, it makes me cry. Someone's been waiting for you, And I'll just think about who that person is, or who those people are that, like, they're just kind of all standing around and they're like, we've been waiting for you. And we're so excited to see you. We're so glad that you lived all the days and years that you did. And now we're all together again. That the souls that are connected in one lifetime, they incarnate again and again together in different ways. Go down a little further. I just want to sort of get through all of these. We'll stop at the reincarnation one, but this is sort of this idea. Go down a tiny bit more further so I can see what's at the bottom of page 10. Yep, I'll go up. Altered perception there. Okay, let's just look at this whole thing. So this is what the Torah says. In Exodus, God says, I want to see your face. Moses says to God, I want to see your face. And God says, you can only see my back. It's like you can see, when we're in this world, we can see the underside of the tapestry, the underside of the needlepoint, the underside of but we don't see what it's all really what the picture is, the grand picture of what the purpose is and how we're all interconnected. We just see the knots and the mess. And there's this idea that when we leave our bodies, when we leave this world, it's like God flips over the needlepoint and we see this extraordinary piece of art that we are just a tiny thread in, but all of a sudden we see how our thread was connected to your thread, connected to his thread, connected to their thread. And it's a sense of transcending time and space and feeling a part of something so much bigger. I think this was actually the picture that I meant to put with the oneness and that sense of interconnectedness and seeing beyond seeing that we're a part of something so much bigger. This other idea that is from all the like near-death experiences and from the Torah is altered perception, transcending limits of time and space. There are many times in the Torah where things seem to happen out of order, and the commentaries say Ein mukdam u'machar b'Torah, meaning like there isn't such a thing as before and after. There's like sort of multiple timelines going on at once. And so that doesn't have to do with this picture. This picture has to do with the oneness and the sense of not being able to see it all until we're in this other realm. And let me just see, I think, yep, we're out of time, but the last thing I wanted you to think about today to just leave you with is this image. The light at the end of the tunnel is not the illusion. The tunnel is. Now just think about that. The light at the end. People always say the light at the end is up, but maybe it's the tunnel. Maybe this is the illusion, and the light is the reality. So the next thing at the bottom of the page, it says, what does Judaism say about reincarnation? And we're going to look at that next week. Gilgulei Nishamot, it's called, the incarnating of souls. So I'll stay on for a few more minutes if you have a question to ask. Does anyone have a quick question? Let's see. Someone said, thank you, love, today. Appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Rosie, you have a question. Unmute yourself if you can do that. Do you know how to unmute or? Let's see. Can Madalena, can you unmute Rosalie?
She's
muted.
I think she can. Okay, I'm asking to unmute.
You know what, Rosie? I can call you afterwards if you want to say something because it's not unmuting. Oh, there we go. Yep.
Oh, she's still muted.
Okay, she's still muted. Sylvia, did you want to say something? Rosie, I'll call you right after we finish class to hear what you have to say because it's not, your computer is not letting us hear you right now.
No, not really, but just thank you very much for just another wonderful session. I think James has something to say
Yeah.
now.
James,
Rabbi,
if it's just a quick
there's
question, I'm
two
not going to get
James.
into a whole thing right now, but a quick question is fine.
There's two. How does, you've been talking about, first off, it was a very interesting discussion and it was really good. How does, like we talked about, is our souls and emotions and consciousness, is it part of the physical world?
Great question.
Like, when you think about what is love, we all love, but is it real? Is it a physical thing? Our consciousness, what is it? When we do good, what makes us do, that thought of doing good? Is it, like I mentioned, is it energy? Is it what, this whole conscious being, our id, I guess, is it not part of this physical world?
Great. I appreciate knowing the questions because it gives me something to talk about next week. So if you have questions about what we did today, and I'm not going to answer them right now, not without everyone here and whatnot, but I appreciate that question. I think it's, again, I'm not going to tell you, oh, here's the answer. If I knew the answer, I'd be God. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know what Jewish tradition has to say, and I know what a lot of the science of near-death experiences has to say. But I don't know for certain. But I will
Right.
share some more thoughts on that next week.
But just what the Jewish thought would be.
Exactly. I appreciate the question. And I will look next week. We'll look at that. It does relate a bit to like the reincarnation
Yeah,
and the idea of like, who are we? What are we? What comes back? What doesn't come back? Yeah, James has a question.
So one of the things you said a little bit ago was that God wants us to be our best version of ourselves. He wants us to evolve and so forth. This is a common thread through many different belief systems. but I haven't quite seen this within Judaism in my studies of the ancient texts. So aside from the, hand-me-down teachings that we've got for thousands of years, obviously, is there something specific in the texts that bring you to that conclusion?
So great question. I can bring some texts next week or just send them to you. But the idea, I mean, the general idea where it comes from is that we are made b'tselem Elohim. This is right in the beginning of the Torah, that we are made
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the image of God, and that God is the perfection of all of these qualities, and that we're put here with the potential to perfect those qualities, but it's very hard to do that. We have to be very focused, and we have to read everything that all the prayers and all the Torah says about God in order to understand what is the best version of me. Like, how do I look? One way to do it, I think, is looking at every prayer that we say. Like, start by just looking at the 19 blessings in the Amidah and look at what it says that God does, and then say, am I doing those things? Because if I'm made in the image of God, if I am essentially a piece of God, it says that we're B'Tselem Elohim, meaning we're the shadow of God, like we do what
Mhm.
God does. How well am I doing in all of those areas? Am I, clothing the naked, feeding the hungry, trying to bring peace amongst, those who are not at peace? Am I straightening those who are bent? And it could be ourselves, but like look at the first 15 blessings that we say at the beginning of the day, where we talk about opening our eyes. Are my eyes open today to what I need to see? Or am I closing my eyes to things, whether they're within me or within my family or within the world? How well am I doing? That's one way to evaluate. I hear you saying is, how do I, the best version of myself? What does that mean? You're right. That is sort of a, 21st century lingo in a way. But the way the Torah says it is, be like God. You are made like God, so you have to look and see who God is in order to know what the best version of you could be. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Overwhelming, isn't it?
Not really, but that's okay. I don't want to take too much of your time. Maybe an
Okay.
email.
Okay. Yeah, you can feel free to email me.
Thank you, though.
I might not be able
Thanks.
to get back to you like within like a day or two, but I will eventually. I'm not like the quickest responder to emails, but I do
I'm
think
sure
that
I can wait.
okay. Well, yeah, so sort of especially big questions like this. But I think that what you're getting at is it's like sort of it's like a new age lingo, or like a way of saying be the best version of you, but like what does that really mean? And does the Torah does not say be the best version of you, but it leads us to believe that's what we're here for, whatever that
Mhm.
means, that we have a potential, like
Mhm.
that second movie where we're shown all the ways we could have been. So that is in the Kabbalistic text. I can send that, I can put it in next time. Anyone else have a quick question? Okay, Howard, you still have your hand up. Is that from before, or did?
No, this is me now with the
Okay, great.
question. Okay, my question is, all, I thought what you said is fascinating, first of all.
Thank you.
I'm wondering whether, Spinoza might have had the right idea when he said God is effectively the substance of the universe. Whatever is in the universe is God. And he came to that by just logic. But what you were saying before about how we're all connected, and and that God is like the architecture and the substance of that connectivity, um, sounds an awful lot like that. And I'm wondering what, but Spinoza was excommunicated. He was given the cherem. So I'm wondering what modern Kabbalists, for example, think of Spinoza in relation to the Kabbalah.
Okay, so that's a question that's like definitely like beyond the realm of what I wanted to talk about right now. So again, if you want to send me an email, we could talk about it. It's not like exactly it's bringing in a whole philosopher that I'm sure not everyone in this group chat or whatever, Zoom room knows enough about Spinoza to really follow the conversation. And I think it's also I mean, we could look at what many different Jewish philosophers have to say about Kabbalah. Like, I don't know why we're choosing Spinoza specifically, but if you want to talk specifically about Spinoza, we could have that conversation, just not right now.
No, it just reminded me of Spinoza. I'm currently studying Zohar with Daniel Matt. That's
Oh,
why.
fantastic.
That's why
Fantastic.
he has an online thing like this that you
So
can
it's
register.
probably, it's a very good question for him, because my class isn't about Kabbalah or
Right.
about Spinoza per se. So I would ask him and see what he says. And then if you want, you can share that with me, or you can, just share it. You'll know the answer to your question, because I think that his
Okay.
class is probably more aimed at answering that question. Because this isn't, while I'm dabbling in Kabbalah and I'm bringing up some Kabbalistic concepts, this isn't a Kabbalah class per se. And Daniel Matt is the guy to be studying Kabbalah with. So it's
All
awesome.
right. Well, I'm
to have that.
sorry. I got the group off track. I apologize.
No need to apologize. We're all sparked everyone's interest. Well, you know what? I have to go now, but I will really look forward to seeing you all next week. Okay? Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, thank you,
Next
thank
week.
you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
We'll all be the